Good morning, you guys. So I've been seeing a lot of people do story times on like the spooky things that have happened to them, and this is not my typical content, but I do have a few stories that I want to share. So I'm going to tell you a series of stories in this video. And I'm going to apologize now. I am a wonderful storyteller in person, but online and to a camera, I'm pretty sure I suck ass. It's just that this is very unnatural, so bear with me if I stumble over my words and whatever. So the first story happened in 2003. I was about 13 years old. My little sister was 12. She and I were next door helping our neighbor pick weeds out of the ground. So Providence is all concrete, but we were helping him pick like the weeds from in between the cracks, if you will. They were elderly people. He was very specific about how he wanted his stuff, so we helped him sometimes. So the house that he lived in was a 3-family home. He lived on the first, his brother lived on the second, and there was a woman and her husband named Jean. She was named Jean. The husband, I don't remember his name. They lived on the third. And I think it's worth mentioning that we had a really good relationship with everyone that lived in that home. So we became very familiar with them and their routines. And Jean would always be at her window hanging clothes on this like clothesline that attached from her window to like this pole in the backyard. And whenever I'd see her or hear her out there, I would run out and just start chit-chatting with her. So this day I'm back there picking the weeds out of the ground. And all of a sudden I look up. And I see what I think is Jean, and she is standing there. I will mention that the size of the window was about half the size of a regular window. And so I look up, I see what I think is Jean. She's standing there, and she's just looking down at me. And I look up at her, and I go, she doesn't wave back. I'm like, I don't like that. Hi. Nothing. And so I called my sister over and I said, I see Jean up at the window, but she's not saying anything to me. She's not even waving at me. And my sister goes, hi, Jean. And Jean doesn't respond. And then all of a sudden, she starts moving back and disappearing. Now I think back on that day, and I vividly remember how sunken in her eyes looked. They were dark. I couldn't see anything. She did wear glasses, but there may have been glasses, I don't remember, but I remember the hollows of her eyes. They were dark. It was very dark in the house, so all I could see was a silhouette. But she had on this white gown. And the funny thing about that moment is that I could see her entire body. And remember, I said that window was about half the size of a regular window. And so it's almost as if time or something in the Matrix glitched or warped. I always called it warping. But it's almost as if something warped and I was able to see or visualize her entire body, because I saw from the top of her head down to where her feet should have been, but I didn't see feet. I saw a gown. Like I said, she was wearing a white gown. So my sister and I, feeling very perturbed, we run inside my mom's house and we're like, Mom, we see Jean at the window and she's just not saying hi to us. She won't say hi to us. And I don't know why we decided to be little fucking tattletales like that. But I guess we were really just shaken up, and that's really all we could formulate was just Jean isn't answering us. And it's almost as if my mom knew. But she looks at us and her face just goes fucking white. And she says, go to your room. And we're like, okay, so we run. We knew something was off, you guys. We knew something was off. And so we could hear her and my dad talking in the kitchen. And then about 30 minutes later, she calls us in. She sits us down in front of her. But she's being very just like gentle. And she's holding us and she says, I don't think that was Jean. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? She says, you know what? I actually can't remember anything after that point. I think I was so shooken up that I literally cannot remember, but I'm going to ask her. Anyway, but I do remember her saying and holding, she was like holding us, and she was like, I don't think that was Jean. Anyway, this particular story happened within like a week or two of school starting. So I was starting my first year in high school. At the end of the day, on our first day of high school, my mom shows up, and we're like, I usually take the bus from like Mount Pleasant down to where I used to live. So her showing up was just rare. So I get in the car and she says, I just have something to tell you. And I said, okay. She's like, Jean died. And I said, when? And she said, 2 weeks ago. And that's funny because I saw her a week ago at the fucking window. And my mom, as much as she doesn't want to admit it or like to admit it because she's a very religious woman, she's very Catholic, she is a knower or a seer or a something. But after I said, there's no way, she's like, yeah, she was dead when you saw her at that window. That wasn't her, that was her spirit. I couldn't sleep for a solid year after that. Shortly after this news, I was downstairs in my room watching TV, and I hear my sister coming down, and she's like, Kayla. She's calling out for me. And I tell her I'm in the room. She comes in and she's like, I just saw Jean walk from one side of the room, another room, to like vanishing into the fucking wall. And I'm like, this is it. That was it. It disturbed me for so long. And it marked such a pivotal point in my adolescence. Like, from that point on, the experiences were out of this world. So I accidentally clicked my camera twice and it turned. And this is here. And if you know this painting, it's the Prince of Peace. I think I should tell you the story on why I even have this. So if you're interested in hearing any more of my stories, please feel free to let me know. Even if you don't, I think I might share it anyway. It's just very interesting. But as I said in the previous clip, this was a pivotal point in my life, and everything started coming out the fucking bag, okay? So, excuse my language. Oh, sorry. All right, stay tuned, I guess. Peace.